Welcome back to Bookish Dives, where we pull back the covers on the books, shaping our understanding of the world. We've had a couple of fascinating dives before, yeah.
We certainly have.
And today, we're plunging into a concept that's really redefined modern business and maybe even your own career path.
It's a big one.
We're unpacking Blitzscaling, the lightning-fast path to building massively valuable companies. It's by Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, and Chris and Riyar.
A really influential book in certain circles.
Definitely. So our mission for you, the listener, is to explore this approach to growth, which, honestly, often feels pretty counterintuitive.
It can, yeah.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding how companies go from just a great idea to, global dominance.
Yeah.
And why sometimes being purposefully inefficient, that's actually the smartest move.
Which sounds completely wrong on the surface, doesn't it?
It does. Bill Gates even says so in the foreword. He highlights how this idea, prioritizing speed over efficiency, even when you're facing deep uncertainty, is more relevant now than ever.
Right.
But yeah, how do we make sense of that? Sacrificing efficiency.
Well, it absolutely sounds counterintuitive at first, but what's fascinating is where the term comes from. It draws parallels to Blitzkrieg, lightning war, in military strategy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's about committing fully, a full-on offensive, accepting really high risks. You might run out of resources, but you do it all to maximize speed and surprise.
So it's less careful planning, more overwhelming force.
Exactly. It's that kind of mentality. Rapid advancement, not necessarily perfectly measured steps.
So it's a whole philosophy, not just tactics.
Yeah.
You're saying, okay, when a market is totally up for grabs, the real danger isn't being a bit messy or inefficient.
No, the real danger is being too slow, playing it too safe.
Right. We saw that with Amazon in the early days, didn't we? They look inefficient, just burning through capital, no immediate profits.
Seem crazy to many people.
Yeah. But that super aggressive investment, it ultimately helped them just dominate online retail. And then, cloud computing with AWS. They basically accepted that financial inefficiency was the price they had to pay for market leadership.
Precisely. And the big question the book tackles is, why is this strategy so powerful now? Why this moment?
Right.
And the authors point squarely at the networked age. The internet has just sped everything up. We've got global markets, instantly accessible, scalable distribution channels, and maybe most importantly, the rise of powerful network effects.
Okay, network effects, like Airbnb.
Airbnb is a perfect example. Each new host makes the service more valuable for guests, right? And every new guest makes it more attractive for hosts. It's this positive feedback loop.
And that creates a moat, a defense against competitors.
A huge one. It becomes incredibly hard for anyone else to catch up once those effects kick in.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for you listening right now? Whether you're, building a startup, leading a team, or just trying to figure out your career in this fast-paced world?
Well, the book really argues these principles aren't just for the Silicon Valley giants anymore.
Yeah, I remember Mark Andreessen's famous line, software is eating the world.
Exactly that. It means every industry, literally every industry, is integrating technology. And that technology accelerates its clock speed, as the book calls it.
So blitzscaling ideas could apply in fashion or energy.
Absolutely. The book gives examples from fast fashion retailers to, even oil shale companies. The underlying principles of speed and scale in uncertain markets, they're becoming more universal.
Okay, but to really get it, we probably need to see it in action.
Yeah.
Like the real stories.
Definitely. The case studies are where it really comes alive.
So let's look at some of those crucibles, the real world battles where these ideas were really tested. First up, maybe Airbnb's European offensive.
Oh yeah, that's a classic blitzscaling story.
So this is back in 2011. Airbnb is still pretty small, like 40 people, scrappy startup vibe, and suddenly they face this massive threat, the Samwer brothers.
Notorious competitors, based in Europe, very well funded, and known for cloning successful U.S. companies fast. They launched Wimdu, a direct Airbnb clone.
Right, so Brian Chesky, Airbnb's CEO, he's got this really tough call, doesn't he? Buy Wimdu out or fight them head on.
Huge decision. And he sought advice from, the big names. Mark Zuckerberg apparently told him the best product will win.
Optimistic.
Maybe. Paul Graham from Y Combinator had a different take. They're mercenaries, you're missionaries, implying Airbnb had the passion edge.
Okay. And Reid Hoffman himself, one of the authors, warned him too.
Yeah, Hoffman warned about the huge risks of trying to integrate Wimdu if they bought it. It could slow them down massively.
So what was the core realization for Airbnb? What made them choose their path?
I think the core insight was that this wasn't really a choice about efficiency anymore, or, careful step-by-step expansion.
It was survival.
It was market capture and survival, yeah.
Yeah.
The SAM wars were essentially blitzscaling against them. Chesky realized they couldn't afford to be cautious. They had to fight fire with fire.
So they chose to fight.
They did. They launched what the book calls an aggressive, all-out program of growth, raised a ton of money, $112 million, expanded like crazy across Europe, basically going head-to-head with Wimdu everywhere.
Anyway.
They effectively outscaled Wimdu, forced them into retreat. Chesky later said something really interesting. He called the competition a gift.
A gift, being attacked.
Yeah, because it forced Airbnb to scale way faster, way more aggressively than they ever would have otherwise. It was this high-stakes, bet-the-company move on pure speed.
Wow, that's a powerful story of an external threat driving it. But what about internal challenges? You mentioned WeChat in China. That was different, right?
Yeah, a fascinating internal story. This was a year earlier, around 2010. Tencent's main product was QQ, a big desktop messenger, but it was kind of stagnating. Mobile was clearly the future.
Okay.
So an employee, Alan Zhang, comes forward and proposes a new mobile messenger. Now, Pony Ma, Tencent CEO, he saw massive risks. Well, first, it could cannibalize their existing giant, QQ. Big risk. Second, free mobile messaging could really upset the powerful mobile carriers in China. They weren't going to be happy.
So big internal and external pushback potential.
Huge. But Pony Ma, he made the bet. He greenlit Zhang's project.
And what happened with WeChat?
It just exploded. I mean, the numbers are staggering. 100 million users in just 16 months.
Wow.
Then 300 million in 26 months. But it wasn't just the user numbers.
What else?
It fundamentally transformed. It didn't just stay a messenger. It became, as people call it, China's app for everything.
So like Facebook, WhatsApp, Venmo, Amazon, Uber, all rolled into one.
Pretty much. All those functions and more integrated into the single indispensable service. People now spend like 90 minutes a day on average inside WeChat. It's incredible.
And Pony Ma felt the pressure.
Oh, yeah. He famously said, looking back at those first crucial months, those 2 months were a matter of life and death. It really underscores the stakes, right? The sheer speed needed, but also the immense rewards if you get it right.
Okay, these stories really show the why, the intensity, the stakes, but how? How do companies actually achieve this kind of insane, lightning-fast growth? It sounds like it has to start with the business model itself.
Exactly. It's not just about having cool tech. It's fundamentally about figuring out how the company makes money and, crucially, how it acquires customers at scale.
Yeah.
Often in totally new ways. Business model innovation is key.
And the book outlines specific factors for this.
Yeah, it lays out 4 key growth factors that are crucial if you want to design a business model that can actually blitzscale. The first one is pretty obvious but critical. Massive market size.
Okay, big market. Makes sense.
But it's not just about how big the market is today. It's about the potential for enormous expansion. There's that famous story about Sam Altman, the investor.
Oh, yeah. Advising Brian Chesky from Airbnb.
Right. Chesky's initial investor pitch apparently had a market size of like $30 million. Altman told him, change it to $30 billion. Bees, baby.
Uh-huh, right. Was he just telling him to inflate the numbers?
No. Altman wasn't suggesting lying. He was pushing Chesky to articulate his genuine conviction about the total addressable market if Airbnb succeeded. It's about the potential you could create. Think about Amazon starting with books was just the entry point, right? The real vision was the everything store.
Got it. So it's about the ultimate potential, the grand vision for the market. What's the second factor?
Second is distribution. How do you get your product or service to customers? The book argues this is just as critical as the product itself.
More important sometimes.
Could be. Drew Houston from Dropbox had this great insight. You need to be good at product first, yes, but then you need to get really good at getting users. And then you need to get good at building the actual business model around them.
So how do you get good at getting users quickly?
Well, one way is leveraging existing networks. Think PayPal piggybacking on eBay early on. Or Airbnb making it super easy for hosts to cross-post their listings on Craigslist with just one click.
Smart.
Yeah.
Using existing channels.
Exactly. And then there's the magic ingredient, virality, where your users themselves bring in more users.
The Holy Grail.
Kinda, yeah. But it doesn't just happen. Dropbox is a great example here, too. They ran these simple $40 usability tests on Craigslist. And they found that almost nobody could figure out how to actually share a file initially. 0 out of 5 people in one test.
Oh, wow. So the viral mechanism was broken.
Totally broken. But by identifying and fixing those critical friction points, those activation issues, they unlocked their virality, and that led to explosive growth.
Okay, market size, distribution. What's third?
Third factor, high gross margins. Basically, how much cash is left after you cover the direct costs of delivering your product or service.
Why is that so crucial for blitzscaling?
Because the more cash you generate per sale, the more you can plow back into growth, into marketing, R&D, hiring, expansion. It fuels the engine.
Software is the obvious example here, right?
Yeah.
Almost zero cost to duplicate.
The perfect example, near 100% gross margins. But even companies in tougher industries find ways. Look at Amazon again. Retail traditionally has lower margins, but they rely heavily on the high margins from AWS, their cloud business, to fund everything else.
Or Zara, the fashion retailer you mentioned.
Right. Zara's model is fascinating. They manufacture locally, which might seem less efficient initially, but their incredible speed in getting designs from runway to store means they sell more at full price and have way less unsold inventory. That directly boosts their gross margins compared to competitors who rely on long, slow supply chains.
Okay, makes sense. And the fourth factor, you mentioned network effects earlier.
Yeah, network effects. This is arguably the ultimate long-term differentiator, especially in this networked age. It's the phenomenon where a product or service becomes intrinsically more valuable to all its users as more users join.
Like Facebook or eBay or Uber. The more people on it, the better it is for everyone.
Exactly those. Or think indirect network effects, like with Android or iOS. More users attract more app developers, which makes the platform more valuable for users, which attracts more users. It's a powerful cycle.
So the key is getting enough users to start that cycle, the tipping point.
Precisely. Reaching that tipping point where the network becomes self-sustaining is critical. And sometimes you even have to find ways to make the product useful before the network is big. Like LinkedIn initially, your public profile was valuable as an online resume, even before the network for connections was fully established.
Okay, so those are the 4 growth factors. Powerful engine. But the book also mentions things that can stop you. Growth limiters.
Right, even with a great engine, things can go wrong. The book highlights 2 key growth limiters. The first is simply having poor unit economics.
Meaning you lose money on each customer or transaction.
Exactly. Like early PayPal, apparently losing money on every single transaction. If your basic economics are broken, then scaling faster just means you burn through cash faster. You're accelerating towards a cliff.
Not good. What's the second limiter?
The second, and often the really tough one, is operational scalability. Can your internal operations, your processes, your infrastructure, your people actually handle the insane growth?
The breaking things part of moving fast.
Pretty much. This is where the rubber really meets the road, and often it's where incredible innovation has to happen on the fly. Think about WhatsApp. Before Facebook bought them, they were serving 500 million users with just 43 employees.
That's mind-blowing efficiency.
Insane. Or look at Airbnb again. They started with the founders literally going door to door taking photos for hosts. That doesn't scale, obviously.
Right.
So then they hired an intern to manage photographers. Still not scalable enough. Eventually, they had to build sophisticated software to manage photographers, listings, quality control, automate the whole process. That's scaling operations.
So the challenge is, how do you scale those operations furiously fast without the whole thing just collapsing under its own weight?
That's the million-dollar question, or maybe billion-dollar question. And sometimes solving your own scaling problems can become a business itself. Look at Amazon Web Services, AWS.
Right. They built it for themselves first.
Exactly. Amazon needed a massive, flexible, scalable computing infrastructure to run their own retail empire. They got so good at building and managing it, they realized they could sell that capability to other companies. They turned a huge internal operational challenge into a massive competitive advantage and a hugely profitable separate business.
That's a critical point.
Yeah.
So when you're growing at this kind of warp speed, it definitely sounds like traditional management. You know, the MBA playbook kind of goes out the window.
Completely, or at least needs serious adaptation.
But isn't there just a massive risk of spiraling into total unproductive chaos? The book talks about these 9 counterintuitive rules for managing blitzscaling. How do they help you manage the chaos?
Yeah.
Not just, surrender to it.
Yeah, that's the key distinction. It's not about embracing all chaos. It's about embracing a certain level of disorder and channeling the energy, recognizing that things like annual plans, Probably irrelevant when you're reorganizing the company 3 times a year because the market is shifting so fast.
So you have to accept imperfection.
You have to take action even when you know there are still issues, still problems to solve. You can't wait for perfect information or a perfect setup.
Okay, and this is where some of the rules sound really challenging. Like, launch a product that embarrasses you. Mark Zuckerberg famously credited Facebook's speed to this idea.
Right. The goal isn't to launch something terrible. It's to launch something minimal that solves the core problem, get it out there fast, get real user feedback, and then iterate like crazy.
So the embarrassment is really about the lack of polish,
Yeah.
not fundamental flaws.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing speed to market and learning over initial perfection. You're deliberately stripping away the non-essential to validate the core idea and outrun competitors. You mentioned your first startup, SocialNet.
Yeah, we waited a year for the perfect launch. Polished everything, turned out half the features were useless, and we'd lost momentum. It was painful. The book makes a good point, though. It's about launching with fixable flaws, not something dangerous or illegal. There's a very clear line.
A critical distinction, absolutely. And that ties into another principle, which is basically about ruthless prioritization amidst chaos.
Which includes letting fires burn. That
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
terrifying.
It does. But the idea is you simply cannot fight every single problem simultaneously when you're blitzscaling. There are too many fires breaking out. You have to act like a trauma surgeon in an ER.
The triage.
Exactly. Tackle the most urgent, life-threatening issues first, the ones that will kill the company today. Other less critical fires, you might have to consciously decide to let them burn for a while.
Can you give an example?
Well, the book mentions SurveyMonkey. Their initial product was apparently pretty ugly aesthetically, but it worked. It solved the core user need. The founder chose to let that ugliness fire burn, ignored the visual complaints for a time, to focus resources on more critical growth initiatives.
Okay, so you fix the engine before you worry about the paint job.
Good analogy. And this ruthless focus sometimes even extends to temporarily ignoring your customer.
Whoa, okay. That really goes against conventional wisdom.
It does, and it's dangerous if done wrong or for too long, but think about early PayPal again. Transaction volume was growing 3-5% per day. They had thousands, maybe tens of thousands of unanswered customer emails piling up.
That's unsustainable.
Totally. So for a period, they literally just stopped picking up the phone for customer support. They focused all hands on deck on keeping the system from collapsing under the transaction load. It absolutely damaged goodwill, cost them users. But the alternative, they felt, was total system failure, collapse.
So it's a desperate temporary measure to survive a crisis.
Exactly. A temporary tourniquet, not a long-term strategy. You have to fix it later, but first, you survive.
Okay, that makes the let fires burn idea a bit clearer. It's about knowing which fires are truly existential. Now, what about that famous advice from Paul Graham? Do things that don't scale. You also hear it called throwaway work. How does that fit in?
It fits perfectly with that idea of strategic inefficiency we talked about earlier. It means in the very early days, founders often have to do things manually, things that are completely inefficient and unsustainable long-term, just to get the flywheel spinning.
Like the Airbnb founders taking photos themselves.
Exactly. Or founders personally recruiting the first 100 users one by one, or handwriting thank you notes. These tasks don't scale. You can't do them when you have millions of users. But they're crucial for getting initial traction, for understanding your first customers deeply, for kickstarting those vital network effects.
So you do the unscalable thing first, learn from it, and then build a scalable system to replace it.
Precisely. Airbnb's photography process is the perfect example. Founders did it. Then an intern managed freelancers. Then they built the software platform. You evolve from throwaway work to scalable systems.
Got it. And the last rule we should probably touch on, the one that makes finance folks nervous. Raise too much money. Why? Isn't that wasteful?
Well, it can lead to waste if discipline breaks down. But the core idea addresses the planning fallacy.
That's our human tendency to be way too optimistic about how long things will take and how much they'll cost.
Exactly. We consistently underestimate time, cost, and risks. Most entrepreneurs, therefore, raise too little money based on their optimistic plans. Blitzscaling, however, happens in extreme uncertainty. Unexpected problems will arise. Competitors will react, maybe aggressively.
So the too much money isn't for luxuries, it's a war chest.
It's a strategic cushion, a war chest, yeah. It gives you the firepower to invest aggressively in growth opportunities when they appear, to weather those unexpected storms or competitive attacks, and crucially, it gives you the runway to pivot and adapt when things inevitably don't go according to plan. It buys you time and options in an uncertain world. It's strategic capital for speed.
Okay, that reframes it significantly.
Yeah.
And connecting this all together, you mentioned this earlier, this intense hypergrowth, it forces big cultural shifts too, right? This pirate to Navy transition.
Yeah, that's a really important concept in the book. Early on, startups often need to be like pirates aggressive, focused purely on offense, breaking rules, moving fast. But as you scale, especially if you become a large, influential company, you can't maintain that forever.
You need more structure, more discipline.
Exactly. You need to transition towards being more like a Navy. Still capable of offense, but also focused on defense, responsibility, sustainability, process, structure, balancing the pirate energy with Navy discipline.
And Uber is kind of the poster child for needing that transition.
Yeah, Uber's public struggles a few years back, and the changes under their current CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, are a very visible example of a company that had incredible pirate success, but then had to consciously work to embrace more Navy values, things like safety, responsibility, better internal culture, working with regulators instead of always fighting them. It's a difficult but necessary evolution for many blitzscalers.
It really seems these lessons pop up in surprising places well beyond Silicon Valley. We talked about Zara in fast fashion, that obsessive focus on speed, getting close to European stores in less than 24 hours sometimes. That dramatically cuts down on unsold inventory, which is huge.
And that anecdote about the founder, Amancio Ortega.
Oh yeah, seeing a jean jacket at a traffic light.
Sees it on a motorcyclist, likes it, and reportedly, right there on the spot, orders his team to get a similar design into production immediately. That's not just fast, that's like instinctual, real-time market response baked into the culture. Almost unbelievable speed.
Incredible. And then even in the oil shale industry.
Yeah.
With Chesapeake Energy.
Right. Maybe a controversial example for some, but illustrates the principle. They apparently went on this massive land leasing spree, grabbing up rights across the U.S. without actually knowing for sure how much gas was there or if the technology to extract it efficiently existed yet.
So they were betting big on the future.
Betting huge on future improvements in fracking technology and on rising energy prices, it was an incredibly aggressive, high-risk bet on scaling their resource base ahead of confirmation pure blitzscaling in the energy sector.
So it seems this mindset can apply way beyond just corporations, too. What about politics or nonprofits?
Absolutely. The book points to the 2008 Barack Obama presidential campaign as a prime example.
How so?
They famously used technology, online organizing tools, social media, data analytics, and completely new ways to build this massive decentralized movement. They connected volunteers, empowered local teams, and raised unprecedented amounts of money online, especially small dollar donations. It was about leveraging tech for speed and scale in a political context.
Mobilizing people faster and wider than ever before.
Exactly. And even in philanthropy, you see echoes. Think about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation tackling malaria. They're targeting a massive market, hundreds of millions affected. They look for interventions with high economic impact per dollar, like distributing mosquito bed nets. It's about maximizing impact at scale, optimizing for the most good per dollar spent, which has parallels to optimizing for growth in business.
That's a really interesting parallel, optimizing impact instead of profit. So we've seen the power, the speed, the chaos. This brings us to a crucial final point the book raises: responsible blitzscaling.
Yeah, this is hugely important.
Because when you're moving this fast and breaking things, sometimes those things are important: societal norms or user trust or even safety. How do you manage this incredibly powerful force for good while acknowledging and mitigating the potential harm?
It's a massive challenge. The book suggests one key is distinguishing between different types of risks, like non-systemic versus systemic risks.
Okay, what's the difference?
A non-systemic risk might be a software bug that affects a small number of users. Annoying, needs fixing, but doesn't threaten the whole system. A systemic risk is something that, when amplified by blitzscaling, could potentially destabilize broader systems: social, economic, political.
Like the example of Facebook and misinformation during elections.
Exactly. That wasn't just a bug. It became a systemic issue potentially impacting democratic processes. The book argues that when blitzscaling creates or amplifies these systemic problems, the solutions also need to be systemic and scalable. You can't just apply old-world, slow fixes like traditional media fact-checking. The scale of the problem requires new, scalable technological and policy solutions.
And who should create those solutions?
Yeah.
The companies themselves.
That-
Government.
That's the ongoing debate, isn't it? The authors tend to argue that self-regulation, where the companies that deeply understand the tech proactively develop safeguards, can often be faster, more flexible, and more effective than waiting for potentially slow or poorly designed government mandates.
But there's an obvious conflict of interest there, right?
Huge conflict of interest, which is why transparency and public accountability are also critical. The authors ultimately contend that despite the disruptions, despite the very real ethical challenges that need constant attention, blitzscaling is, on balance, a powerful engine for progress. It drives innovation, economic growth, creates jobs, and potentially increases social mobility, but ensuring it does more good than harm. That's the critical ongoing work.
So, wow, we've covered a lot of ground. We've journeyed through this really dynamic, often counterintuitive world of blitzscaling. We've seen how prioritizing speed, sometimes over efficiency, embracing that uncertainty, and really innovating on the business model itself, how that can create just massive value and completely reshape entire industries.
It really is a perspective-shifting book. It changes how you look at business growth in the modern world.
Definitely. And the authors leave us with these three sort of calls to action for anyone trying to navigate this world. I thought they were quite powerful. First, be an infinite learner. The landscape just changes too fast. You have to keep learning constantly to adapt.
Absolutely essential today.
Second, be a first responder. See emerging trends, act quickly, don't wait for perfect certainty, jump in.
Embrace the uncertainty, basically.
Yeah. And then the third one, which feels a bit paradoxical given all the chaos we discussed, be a source of stability. In the middle of all this constant change, try to be a stable, reassuring presence for the people around you, your team, your colleagues.
Provide that anchor amidst the storm. It's a really nice blend of proactivity and human consideration. A powerful framework, yeah, for not just surviving, but maybe even thriving in this era.
But thank you for joining us on this deep dive into blitzscaling. It's been fascinating.
My pleasure. Great discussion.
And for everyone listening, make sure to follow Bookish Dives for more explorations into the books that are really shaping our world. You won't want to miss our next dive.